All right, we'll do a little update from the artist formerly known as Q. Or maybe they're still known as that. Well, I feel like I need to raise this up a little bit. There we go. You need to see my bald Eggo waffle head. I gotta make sure it's the light and camera angle. It's just perfect for you guys. I gotta, I'm very self-conscious about that. My balding head and whatnot. Update January 11th. Boom, 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 says Q. And then he posts a picture of the Chinese airport, one of them, I should say, awaiting VIP arrival. What senior U.S. official is arriving in China, and what's the purpose? I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm going to look that up in a minute. At what point is it mathematically impossible? The very next day, Red Castle, Green Castle, public access to intel. Now, remember Red Castle, Green Castle, that was the Army Corps of Engineers symbol. And Q talked about, we will build the wall. Red Castle, Green Castle. Oh, got it. Army Corps of Engineers. That's their little symbol. Okay. So we've been hearing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Oh, she's recovering, and there's no signs of anything left in her lung, little growth or whatever. And I'm over here questioning, we sure she's still with us these days? And then he says, if a woman is selected as the nominee, does that eliminate the wrap-up smear regarding sexual assault? You're going to ask a woman, in other words, Trump, what he's saying is going to ask for a woman to be the next Supreme Court justice to replace Ginsburg. What other tactics might be planned to block and or force the person's name removal? Why is the Senate important? He says. Who controls the Senate? 53-47. Enjoy the show, Q. Republicans run the Senate. Why is the Senate important? Because that's who this is going to go through. Supreme Court nominee. So anyways, he said the previous one, at what point is it mathematically impossible? And he goes, the very next day, Red Castle, Green Castle, public access to intel. And he points back to a January 6th post, the history of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, appointed by Bill Clinton. It's a long one. Let's go. This is Q writing this from January 6, 2019. Why was she selected? Who appointed her? Clinton, Bill Clinton, etc. Yeah, it says the history of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, appointed by Bill Clinton. Why was she selected? Who appointed her? Remember her history. Reference 230-page book called Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, published in 1977 by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. And it's got her and her thoughts. And she is totally a liberal of epic proportions if you read some of the things she stands for in that book. Highlights called for the sex integration of prisons and reformatories so that the conditions of imprisonment, security, and housing could be equal. She explained, if the grand design of such institutions is to prepare inmates to return to the community as persons equipped to benefit from and contribute to civil society, then perpetuation of single-sex institution should be rejected. Called for the sex integration of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts because they perpetuate stereotyped sex roles. Insisted on sex integrating college fraternity and sorority chapters and replacing them with college social societies. Cast constitutional doubt on the legality of Mother's Day and Father's Day as separate holidays. Here's a big one, called for the reducing the age of consent for sexual acts to people who are less than 12 years old, page 102 of the book, of the report. Asserted that laws against bigamist persons cohabitating with one or more women and women cohabitating with a bigamist are unconstitutional. Objected to laws against prostitution because prostitution as a consensual act between adults is arguably within the zone of privacy protected by recent constitutional decisions, page 97. Anyway, so there's several others. An indefatigable censor, Ginsburg listed hundreds of sexist words that must be eliminated from all statutes. Among the words she found offensive were man, woman, man-made, mankind, husband, wife, mother, father, sister, brother, son, daughter, serviceman, longshoreman, postmaster, watchman, seamanship, and to man, or as in to man a vessel. Pages 15 to 16, in case you're wondering. Wanted he, she, him, her, his, and hers to be dropped down the memory hole. Okay. So anyway, that's what that one's about. And then he finishes this up and says, who are the doctors currently treating Ruth Bader Ginsburg? What other political, former or current, senior political heads are they affiliated with? What off-market drugs are being provided to Ruth Bader Ginsburg in order to sustain minimum daily function? What is the real medical diagnosis of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Who is managing her care? Who is really managing her care? The clock is ticking. Panic in D.C. So when he says one thing here, what is her medical diagnosis, but mainly the other thing, what off-market drugs are being provided to her in order to sustain minimum daily function? In other words, this woman can't even sustain her minimal daily functions without this drug, which means she's in worse than terrible condition. She's way far worse than we're being told, or, as some people think, she is no longer even with us. She's what they call a vegetable. When you're hooked up to a machine, you can't do anything, you can't respond. But I don't know that. But I do know one thing. Donald Trump's fixing to pick another Supreme Court justice here shortly. Take care.